Coming up on 11:15 here on today's TMJ4, this is breaking news now. Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett and Chief of Police Edward Flynn are about to announce what they're calling significant developments in the murder of Laylah Petersen. Today's TMJ4 has learned that there have been 3 people arrested accused of shooting and killing that 5-year-old girl as she sat on her grandfather's lap in her own home. This happened at 58th and Fairmount almost a year ago. It happened in early November. You see Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett at the podium right now, Chief of Police Ed Flynn to his right. Both of them expected to talk about the investigation. Here's the mayor.
November 6, 2014, almost a year ago, Laylah Petersen was sitting on her grandfather's lap in what most people would assume would be the safest position you could be in your life. Then her life ended. The tragedy began for the Petersen family, a tragedy that continues to this day. But that was also the time when the Milwaukee Police Department started its work. And we're here today to talk about the work that the Milwaukee Police Department has done in the last 11 and a half months. The men and women who work for this department do a phenomenal job protecting our city, working tirelessly to solve crimes. And what you're about to hear is an example of the detectives, the rank and file, everyone in this department who has done everything they could to make sure that the people responsible for Laylah's death would be brought to justice. I'm proud of this department. I'm proud of the men and women who work for this department. I'm proud that on a daily basis they do everything they can to protect the people in this city. And I'd like Chief Edward Flynn to come forth and talk about this case in detail so you have a sense of just what a phenomenal department we have here in the city of Milwaukee. Chief Flynn.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, Mayor. We all remember where we were 11 months ago when Laylah Petersen was senselessly and brutally murdered in the presumed safety of our own home. This police department took it hard. The officers that were there took it hard. It was very difficult. I've been carrying something around with me for a year, and it's Laylah. And I'd like to think we could put her to rest now. Our Metro Division, our homicide detectives, have worked tirelessly on this case. Not a day has gone by that they have not worked every single avenue, followed up every piece of evidence, gone down dead ends, talked to people who had nothing to say or wouldn't cooperate. But they never gave up. They followed the witnesses. They followed the informants. They talked, they talked, they talked. They submitted evidence. They didn't stop. Well, information that we've received from many sources, as well as the investigation of the detectives themselves, has resulted in the arrests of 3 individuals in the death of Laylah Petersen. Paul Farr has been charged with 2 counts of harboring and aiding a felon. Carl Barrett and Arliss Gordon are each charged with first-degree reckless homicide. Farr and Barrett were arrested here in Milwaukee on October 14th. Gordon was arrested in Glenwood, Illinois on October 17th on unrelated charges. As you've no doubt read in the criminal complaint, these individuals were motivated by a tragic but also absurd chain of events. A homicide trial had occurred that very same day. An individual that one of the defendants considered a stepbrother had been murdered, and his alleged assailant was acquitted that day in a jury trial. As a result of that jury trial, that defendant made threats to associates of his and procured a firearm from yet another associate. And over the course of several hours, these individuals got a second firearm and decided to go shoot up the house of the girlfriend of the acquitted defendant. they went to the wrong house. 4 blocks from their intended target, 2 of these individuals, Barrett and Gordon, got out with their firearms and fired numerous shots into the house. Resulting in the death of the little girl. Now, through our grief and concern, we can take quiet pride in the work of members of this police department. I'll not soon forget the professionalism of the officers who are first responders and their sensitivity to the family, even as they processed a brutal and gruesome crime scene. And as this case was handed off to the detectives, it would ultimately become what's referred to as our cold case squad's job to follow this case to the very end. I'm joined today by Detective Eric Villarreal and Detective Rosemary Galindo to my left here, who did astounding and impressive work in securing the information necessary for this criminal complaint. We are not joined by Detective Kathy Spano, who also played a very important role in this case. Members of the 7th District here under the command of Captain Jatiki Jackson have exhibited calm, sensitive, and compassionate professionalism through every step of this investigation. And members of the ATF certainly worked hard with us to identify the firearms and trace the ballistics. This has been a difficult year for us, but nowhere near as difficult as it has been for the family. We are joined here today by Laylah's mom, Ashley Fogel, her grandma, Maggie Fogel, and her dad, R.J. Petersen, who I believe at this time would like to say a few words. R.J.?
I just want to thank the City of Milwaukee and District 7 Police especially for all the long hours and hard work they put in this. Last night I got the first peaceful night's sleep I've had in a very long time. And I would just like to thank them from the bottom of my heart for finally bringing some justice for Laylah. At this time, me and the rest of the family are not answering any questions. We're just going to be leaving after this interview. So, thank you to the community for sure for all the support. We've had great support. Let it be the District 7 Police or the community. And we just want to thank everyone who had love for my daughter, that there is a special place in my heart for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, RJ. And to the family, again, the city grieves for your loss. We continue to grieve. We're very, very sorry. I know that there's no way to change what happened. But I want the people in our community to know just how strongly our police department felt about this. And I think you could tell by the voice of Chief Lynn. And I was at the funeral. I saw the police at the funeral, the way they treated this case. This was as though we lost a family member. And it was something that the police took very personally. And I am so proud of the men and women who work for this department and the fact that they never, ever, ever gave up. And I think the people of this community should realize just how important a job the Milwaukee Police Department does, again, to ensure our safety. Thank you to all the police officers and detectives who are here today.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your continued support for our organization. I'll take some questions now. I understand you've got copies of the criminal court, so a lot of the more specific questions, I think, are more accurately referred to in that complaint if you want to look them up, and probably there's some information that I can't give out at this time, but I'll certainly attempt to share.
a reward, Chief?
Yes.
Was a reward offered in the case?
There was, but it won't be necessary to give out in this case.
Where did the defendants get the guns? Were they legally obtained? What do you know about that?
Well, we still have to ascertain that, so that information is still yet to be determined.
Chief, have you ever carried a picture of any other victim in their career before? It's something that's unique.
Well, there are probably a couple of things going on here. One is that there was a pin to carry. One is that I was, for a variety of reasons, able to go to the scene immediately and see for myself. And one is I'm a grandpa of a 5-year-old. Okay. Okay.
Can you tell us more about the suspects, who are these men, what kind of background do they have, and several of the arrests? Were there any incidents in getting them in custody?
Good question. The short answer is no, there weren't any incidents connected to the arrest. And the criminal records of two of the people, the two individuals we've identified as the shooters, are minimal but reasonably serious, but not extensive.
You see these revenge shootings, what message would you send to people out there who want to take justice into their own hands?
Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, you know, baby Thao was killed by an idiot who was at the wrong house over a drug dealer. You know, this case was another supposed case of mistaken identity. Sierra Guyton was killed by two criminal morons who were armed with firearms shooting it out with each other. I mean, there's a level of recklessness out there and heedlessness that is very difficult to send any message that's coherent to. We're going to continue to do our best to identify and apprehend those individuals who engage in reckless behavior. We'll do our best to be in the right places at the right times, but when there's a highly motivated criminal out there with a firearm on a mission of revenge, it's difficult to come up with a preemptive tactic, particularly given how easy it is for them to procure firearms. So it's clearly a challenge, and the cycle of revenge and retaliation continues to bedevil us.
Chief, did you say all three are in custody for?
That's true. The individual that we believe was the driver of the vehicle, as well as the two assailants, are in custody.
Chief, whatever happened to the case of the people seeking retaliation because of the acquittal?
I'm sorry.
The case of the acquittal, where the people were seeking retaliation because of the acquittal, can you talk about what happened with that?
Well, I mean, this is what this is. These are the folks that were seeking retaliation because of the acquittal. Right? Somebody had been acquitted of a homicide. The decedent in that homicide was a relative of one of the shooters, and that was the purpose underlying this particular offense.
Chief, do you have a weapon?
Not at this time.
It took almost a year of good police work. Obviously, you had to piece together a rather elaborate puzzle. Can you kind of walk us through this, and was there any one sort of linchpin that put this all together?
Well, as you look at the criminal complaint, you can see it's very much a building block process. You know, just because you have a piece of information doesn't mean that information is accurate or true. You've got to figure out a way to verify. You've got to figure out a way to triangulate that information with other people. Who else might know? Who else can we find out there that can tell us more about this particular piece? Do the stories line up with each other? Is it plausible? What else do we know? Does it line up with the physical evidence we have? So it's very much, you know, once you get into a chain of information, a very iterative process. It's basically a form of building a criminal case. Just as an attorney has to prepare a brief to go in there to court, the complaint that's drawn up by the detectives really has to meet those standards. So it's got to be logical, it's got to be consistent, and it's got to be verifiable. And that's something that is a very painstaking and, as I say, iterative process.
Did the shooter, the guy who was going for revenge, did he have any sense of remorse? It sounds like he was a victim at one point himself.
Well, I would hope to God he's got some remorse. What I know is that he was able to articulate to other people, as you will see in the complaint, that he would learn because of the news that he'd shot up the wrong house.
It's obviously meant a lot to you, and clearly it was very emotional for the family. What was it like for you or whomever it was who was able to break the news to the family after all of this time?
I can't speak for those folks. there is a sense of relief. Okay, I don't think there is ever a sense of closure. I don't think things are ever closed out. But I think there is a sense of relief, an exhale, if you will. There's an opportunity here to at least provide a measure of justice for the surviving families. And I think that's certainly something that's motivated our detectives. It's certainly something that's motivated the police department. I mean, there's no question there's a lot of violence in this city. We are plagued by the same kinds and levels of violence as our sister cities across the country right now. It doesn't mean we don't take it all personally. But occasionally a case just kind of symbolizes the wantonness and the recklessness of all of the worst of our other violence. And I think particularly when it involves a small child, it kind of captures all of that built up frustration that our members have. And this is one of those cases that gripped everybody in this district, and certainly the fact that it couldn't, wasn't going to stop our officers here from being professional. It wasn't going to stop our detectives from being methodical. But there was an extra element to it, I think, because of its wantonness, because of her youth and innocence, because she was in a safe place with a grandpa, that just kind of in many ways pulls a lot of the threads of all of those other senseless acts of violence in this city, and just came to, I think, be emblematic of it for our officers that were working on this case.
I think it's the, I hear officers and friends who are officers who say, when they retire, maybe they have that one case that stands out in their mind. Is this that case for you?
Well, this is that one case that won't have to stand out in my mind as being unresolved. And that's the most important thing from my professional side. Okay? Personally, I wish to God it had never the hell happened. Professionally, I can kind of just exhale myself and just say, we're going to get justice for that little girl.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Milwaukee Chief of Police Edward Flynn, in perhaps as an emotional of a news conference as he has ever given in his time here in Milwaukee, very choked up as he announced the arrest of 3 people wanted in connection with the death of 5-year-old Laylah Petersen. See some of the members of the police department hugging members of the Petersen family. You heard from Laylah Petersen's father, R.J. Petersen, saying that they got their first decent night of sleep in quite some time since they lost their little girl almost a year ago now. The 3 arrested are 3 young men in their 20s, 2 of them accused of shooting up the house, and 1 of them accused of driving them around. The shooting, as the chief revealed, retaliation for an acquittal of a murder of a family member of one of the shooters, Arliss Gordon. This is something, again, that the chief said was very personal to him as a father and as a grandfather, and that he had a lot of detectives working very hard trying to bring justice for Laylah Petersen. More hugs exchanged by members of the Milwaukee Police Department with that family. For their part, they said they wouldn't be interested in talking any more about this at this time. They're going to go home and process this. Laylah's father did offer that he would like to thank everyone in the community from the bottom of their hearts, everyone who had love for my daughter. Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett also saluting the police work of the Milwaukee Police Department. You see him there in frame talking with the Petersen family as well. Laylah Petersen killed almost a year ago. Again, 3 suspects in custody right now, all facing charges in connection with that tragedy on Milwaukee's north side. Today's TMJ4 has multiple teams in place covering the angles of this story, and we'll continue to flesh out the details for you and bring that to you and live at noon. That's less than a half hour away. Full hour of local news and weather coming your way at noon.